The Ring of the Nibelung by Richard Wagner. The synopsis is presented by Opera Inside, the online opera guide. The preliminary events. The world rested in its original state. It was not clouded by any domination. It rested on the world ash. The tree was the root of the holy order. In its shadow bubbled a spring, feeding the world ash with its eternal wisdom. In the ground, in a misty tomb, Erda slept, the wisest of all human beings. An intrepid god with the name Wotan seeked power. He came to drink at the spring of wisdom. One of his eyes he paid as forfeit forever. He wanted to use the wisdom he had gained to create a new world order, through laws and contracts, which were designed according to his will. From the world ash tree Wotan broke off a branch. He then cut a shaft for his spear. He carved the contracts and laws in runes in the spear. Wotan had thus taken over the rule of the world. To demonstrate and consolidate his power, Wotan wanted to build a castle. On the advice of Logi, he commissioned the giants Fafnir and Fasolt to build it. As a reward, Wotan promised them the beautiful goddess Freya. The giants created a castle of the gods. Wotan called it Valhalla. The ash tree fell and the spring dried up forever. Wotan had the wood piled up in logs around the castle. The fire god Logi would ignite them when the end of the gods was approaching. Nature had been damaged by Wotan's outrage against the ash tree. Because Freya ensured eternal youth for the gods, and was therefore irreplaceable for them, Wotan sent Logi out into the world to find another way of payment for the giants. The Rheingold. The roles. Welgunde, Flosshilde and Woglinde, mermaids and Rhine maidens, guardians of the Rheingold. Wotan, god and ruler of the world. Fricka, goddess of marriage and wife of Wotan. Freya, sister of Fricka, goddess and guardian of the apples of eternal youth. Donna and Fro, gods and brothers of Fricka. Erda, Ciris, mother of the Norns. Logi, demigod and advisor of Wotan. Fasolt and Fafnir, giants. Alberic, Nibelung. Mimi, Nibelung and brother of Alberic. At the bottom of the Rhine. The Rhine maidens guard the Rheingold. It is located in the middle of a reef in the river. The dwarf Alberic from the people of the Nibelungs appears. Fascinated, he watches the mermaids, and lustfully tries to conquer at least one of them. The three mermaids look at him curiously, and soon they tease the clumsy dwarf. Alberic discovers a bright light by which he is magically attracted. Credulously, the Rhine daughters tell him that there the Rheingold gleams in the rays of the rising sun. Whoever forges it into a ring reaches the power over the world, but only if he renounces love. Alberic does not hesitate. Embittered by not having been granted love from the mermaids, he curses love and steals the gold under the horrified gaze of the gods. A mountainous landscape. At the castle of the gods, Fricka wakes up her husband Wotan. He is still overwhelmed that his castle Valhalla is completed. Still shrouded in fog, it proudly stands on a mountain, built by the giants Fafnir and Fasolt. But Wotan is in trouble. He has promised the two giants the goddess Freya as a reward. Fricka admonishes him not to give away her sister Freya, for only she can assure the gods of their eternal youth. Wotan reminds his wife that it was she who had asked him for the castle, for she wanted to bind the notorious cheater Wotan to herself. Freya appears accompanied by her brothers Donna and Fro. She is panic-fueled because she has heard of Wotan's dealings. Now Wotan must promise not to give Freya away. The two giants appear. They refer to the castle they have built and want to claim their well-deserved reward from Wotan. But he tells them that Freya is not available. Fafnir and Fasolt accuse him of cheating them out of their wages. They want no other reward. Now appears Logi, the cunning demigod of fire. Wotan had summoned him in the hope that he could devise a ruse that would free him from the jam. If he cannot serve the contract, it would cost Wotan his power. Fricka warns Wotan of the crafty Logi, but Wotan trusts his cunning. To Wotan's dismay, Logi explains that he had searched everywhere, but he couldn't find a replacement for Freya. In the searching process, he had come across the Rhine Maidens, who complained that Alberic had stolen their gold and were now seeking help from Wotan. When Logi tells about the magic of the forged ring, and Wotan proposes to snatch it from Alberic to protect them from his claim to power, everyone wants the ring for themselves. Fafnir and Fasolt, seized by greed, grab Freya and take her as a pawn. They announce that she will only be released when Wotan hands them the ring. Logi mocks the gods who are paralyzed by the fear of losing their eternal youth, as they can no longer eat apples from Freya's trees, which Logi himself was never allowed to enjoy. Aging already seizes the gods, and Wotan must set off together with Logi to Alberic's underworld, to wrest the ring from him. In Nibelheim, Alberic's kingdom deep underground. In drudgery his brother Mimi has to forge a magic helmet for Alberic, which makes the wearer invisible and gives him power over the people of the Nibelungs. Logi and Wotan meet the exhausted Mimi and learn from him about the magic power of the helmet that Mimi had to forge for Alberic. With the power of the ring, Alberic had subdued the industrious people of the Nibelungs. Alberic appears. Proud of the gold, he points out that the Nibelungs pile it up for him day after day with hard work. He knows that Wotan and the gods despise him, and he announces that he will use his power to bring the world under his control. No one can defeat him or steal the ring from him, because with the magic helmet he can disappear or transform himself. Flatteringly Logi asks to show him how he can transform. Proudly Alberic turns into a dragon. Now Logi cunningly asks him whether he also succeeds in transforming himself into something small. Alberic turns into a toad. Wotan grabs it and Alberic is outsmarted. Logi and Wotan take Alberic to a mountain and Wotan demands that Alberic hand over the gold. His plan is to exchange the gold for Freya and keep the magic helmet and ring for himself. When he snatches the ring from Alberic, all power is taken from the Nibelung. The dwarf curses the ring to bring bad luck to its owner. Fricka leads the goddesses and gods, Fafnir and Fasolt, to the mountain. Wotan proudly shows them the captured treasure. Fasolt insists that the gold be piled high enough to hide Freya from view, and they insist that Wotan gives them the helmet and the ring. But Wotan refuses. There appears a mysterious, veiled woman wrapped in blue light. She urges Wotan to let go of the ring, because the curse of Alberic is on him. She reveals herself as Urda, the omniscient mother of the world. The gods urge Wotan to follow her advice. Wotan knows about the wisdom of Urda and agrees. He gives the ring to Fasolt and Freya is set free. Without knowing it, Wotan has been infected by the poison of the curse by touching the ring. Fafnir and Fasolt quarrel when sharing the prey. Fafnir violently kills his brother with an axe. The curse has claimed its first victim. Donna creates a purifying thunderstorm. The fog clears and they see the castle for the first time. Froll lets a rainbow emerge, which serves them as a path to the castle. Seized by a great thought, Wotan raises his spear against the castle. He will not return the ring, but a hero free of treaties. Seized, Wotan approaches the castle. He takes Fricka by the hand and christens their new home Valhalla. Logi went out empty-handed. He has only mockery and derision for the gods whose rule is based only on robbery and violence. From afar one hears the lamentations of the Rhine maidens over the lost gold. The gods mock them and enter solemnly and fatuously their new home. Auxiliary informations. Fafnir has retreated into a cave. So that no one can take the ring away from him, he has turned into a dragon with the help of the magic helmet. To learn more about his fate from Urda, Wotan descends to her into the womb of the world. She prophesies a shameful end to him. To escape this fate, he defeats Surtur with his love spell, and they father the Valkyrie Brunhilde. She shall help him to fend off Alberic's attack on the realm of gods. Wotan fears that Alberic will capture the ring from Fafnir. He himself is forbidden to rob Fafnir of his just reward. So he wants to beget a hero who, free from contracts, snatches the ring from Fafnir. He fathers the siblings Siegmund and Sieglind with a mortal woman. He lives with them until one day, he finds his wife dead in their house, and Sieglind has disappeared without a trace. The Valkyrie. New roles. Brunhilde, Valkyrie and daughter of Wotan. Siegmund, son of Wotan. Sieglinde, daughter of Wotan and twin sister of Siegmund. Hunding, husband of Sieglinde. In a dense forest during a hurricane storm, the wounded Siegmund is on the run. With his last ounce of strength, he reaches refuge in a lonely house. It's the sight of Hunding and his wife Sieglinde. Sieglinde takes pity on the stranger and gives him to drink. Hunding comes home. Thoughtfully he recognizes the resemblance between Sieglinde and the stranger and he wants to hear his story. Siegmund takes off his coat and tells that he came home one day and found his mother dead. The house was burnt down and there was no trace of his twin sister. He later learned that his sister was forced into marriage and he tried to save her. At that moment, Hunding recognizes Siegmund as his enemy. By tradition, he grants Siegmund hospitality and challenges him to duel for the next day. Sieglinde gives Hunding a sleeping drug and shows Siegmund a sword stuck in a tree. Wotan had pushed it in and declared that it will belong to whoever was strong enough to pull it out. No one has ever been able to do it. Since then, Sieglinde has eagerly awaited the hero who will wipe out her shame. Siegmund grabs the sword. He manages to pull the sword out and he calls it Notum. Siegmund and Sieglinde realize that they are brother and sister. They unite and father a child. At dawn they flee the house together. In the mountainous region of the realm of the gods, Wotan is with his daughter Brunhilde. He has ordered the Valkyrie to protect Siegmund, since he has determined him to conquer the ring. But his wife Fricka demands Wotan to support Hunding in the fight, because Wotan had fathered Siegmund with another woman. Moreover, he would undermine his own rules with his plan. Deeply grieved, he orders Brunhilde that Siegmund must die in the duel. Brunhilde goes to Siegmund, who rests on his escape route. She tells him that he must die. As a reward he will enter Valhalla. When Siegmund realizes that he would have to live there without Sieglinde, he refuses. He'd rather die with her. A great and sudden compassion seizes Brunhilde, and she decides to assist Siegmund in the fight. Hunding has followed them and he challenges Siegmund to a duel. Sure of victory, Siegmund grabs his sword and faces the duel in the forest. Supported by Brunhilde, Siegmund quickly gains the upper hand as he prepares for the fatal blow. Wotan's spear suddenly appears and destroys Notum, and Hunding stabs the unarmed Siegmund. Brunhilde flees with the expecting Sieglinde on the mountains to the Valkyries, who are gathered on a rock. With horror they learn from their sister that she is on the run from Wotan. No one is willing to help her. Brunhilde admonishes the pregnant Sieglinde to save her child. She gives the exhausted Sieglinde her horse Grane and the broken sword for her future son. Sieglinde escapes with her last ounce of strength into the forest. Brunhilde stays behind on the rock and submits to Wotan's punishment. She loses her god status and is cast out of Valhalla. Wotan wants to put her to sleep on a path where she will be at the mercy of the first that comes along. When Brunhilde begs for mercy, Wotan accepts that Loge will put a wall of fire around her sleeping place for protection, which only a hero can break through. Moved, Wotan says goodbye to his favorite daughter. Auxiliary informations. Exhausted, Sieglinde encounters Mime on the run. He gives her refuge in his cave. Before she dies in the birth of her son Siegfried, She asks Mime to raise him and hand over the sword pieces to him in manhood. Siegfried. New roles. Siegfried, son of Siegfried and Sieglinde. Mime is in his cave and forges a sword for Siegfried. Many years ago he took Siegfried in as his foster son, who is now to help him wrest the ring from the dragon Fafnir. Mime is frustrated. His swords cannot withstand the power of the brutal and simple-minded Siegfried. The only sword that could withstand his strength would be Nothung, but it lies smashed to pieces in a cloth. If he could forge it together, he would get the ring. He tries again. Siegfried enters and examines the sword. He destroys it in one fell swoop, and curses Mime for being a bungler. Siegfried despises the dwarf, who is still a stranger to him. The only thing Mime could still do for him is to explain who his mother is. When Mime claims that he is both mother and father, Siegfried threatens to use violence. Now Mime tells the story of a woman named Sieglinde, whom he found alone in the forest with a small child. He took her in, but she died soon after. He did not know Siegfried's father, since he had been killed before, and he had only got the debris of his sword. When Siegfried sees the parts of the sword, he forces Mime to forge a new sword out of them and leaves the cave. But Mime is at a loss. Too often has he tried to forge the sword back together. At this moment an unknown wanderer enters. It is Wotan, who secretly follows Siegfried's progress and tries to secure his power through him. He tells Mime that the one who never learned to fear should forge the sword, and that Mime will die by his hand. Now Siegfried enters and Wotan leaves the cave unnoticed. Siegfried rages when he does not see Mime behind the anvil. Mime tells about the prophecy of the Wanderer. To save his head he advises him to learn to fear by fighting the dragon Fafnir. Siegfried knows that he needs the sword to survive in the fight against the dragon. When Mime again fails to forge the sword, Siegfried realizes that he himself is the one who has never learned to fear and must forge the sword himself. He shreds the sword into swaths and reforges it. Fascinated, Mime watches as the ignorant man recreates the sword in the embers. Siegfried asks Mime the name of the sword. It was called Nothung and so it shall be called again. Now Mime also decides to abuse Siegfried for his own purposes. He plans to stun Siegfried with a poison potion, who will be tired after the fight with the dragon, then kill him and take the ring. While Siegfried triumphantly finishes forging his sword, Mime brews a poisonous potion that will secure him the ring and thus world domination. When the sword is finished, the weapon is so powerful that Siegfried can split the anvil with it. In the nocturnal forest, Alberic waits in front of the Night Holy, Fafnir's sleeping cave. The ring lies unreachable for him with Fafnir, who turned into a dragon with the help of the magic helmet, and who thinks he is invincible. For a long time Alberic has been waiting for an opportunity to take the ring back. He recognizes a shadow. It is a wanderer in whom Alberic recognizes his old adversary Wotan. Alberic suspects that Wotan wants to steal the ring from him for the second time, but Wotan claims to have only come by as an innocent bystander. He warns Alberic that Mime is on his way to Fafnir with Siegfried, and that his brother is his only rival for the ring, because Siegfried himself does not know about the magic of the ring. He advises Alberic to warn Fafnir in order to get the ring in return. Wotan calls the dragon, and Alberic offers the dragon to ward off the disaster. But Fafnir is not interested and rejects the two. Disappointed, Alberic returns to the cave and Wotan leaves the place with mocking words. Now Siegfried and Mime reach the place. Mime warns him of the poisonous spitting and the deadly blow with the tail and hides in the forest. Siegfried doubts whether he can learn to fear here and plans to thrust the sword into the dragon's heart. While waiting for the dragon, Siegfried ponders what his father and mother looked like. He hears the birds whistling and tries to imitate the sounds with a reed. He does not succeed to create the sounds, and he tries it with his horn. Fafnir is awakened by the sounds. Siegfried speaks to him and wants to learn fear from him. The dragon wants to eat him, and Siegfried pushes Notum right into his heart. On dying, the dragon turns back into the giant Fafnir, who warns him of the misfortune of the Nibelung horde. The hot blood has scorched Siegfried's hand. As he cools his hand with his mouth and comes in contact with the blood of the dragon, he can suddenly understand bird calls. A bird, who is a mouthpiece of Wotan, advises him to take the ring and the magic helmet. Siegfried goes to the cave to get them. Alberic shows up and stumbles upon Mime. The two fight over the loot. Alberic leaves when Siegfried appears. Meanwhile, Wotan has arrived and watches the scene from a hiding place. Siegfried has learned of Mime's evil intentions from the forest bird. When Mime offers him the potion, Siegfried understands his plan and kills Mime with his sword. Now Siegfried senses a feeling of loneliness and asks the bird to talk to him. The bird tells him about a beautiful woman who sleeps on a rock, protected by fire. She can only be saved by someone who does not know fear. Cheering, Siegfried realizes that he will be the savior and follows the bird, which shows him the way to Brunhilde. Wotan moved to the Valkyrie Rock to question Erda. She sees through him and refuses to help Wotan, but he forces her to prophesy his fate. Erda announces that the power of the gods will end soon, and that she and her Norns cannot change anything about it either. Wotan is tired and decides to give the power to Siegfried and waits for him at the rock. The clash ends unhappily for Wotan. Siegfried treats him, the stranger, without respect, and Wotan decides to get in his way. He announces to smash Siegfried's sword with his spear, once more, like he once did with the sword Notung. Siegfried believes to recognize the murderer of his father in the Wanderer, and smashes Wotan's spear with his sword. With this, Wotan loses everything and he must let Siegfried pass to Brunhilde. The way is clear for Siegfried, who fearlessly enters the fire. Siegfried safely reaches the rock where Brunhilde sleeps. He sees a sleeping person in full armor. When he removes the armor, he sees a woman for the first time in his life. Now he has learned to fear, and an overpowering feeling takes possession of him. He takes courage and kisses her to awaken her. Brunhilde wakes up and welcomes the day. She sees her awakener and recognizes in him Siegfried, whom she once protected and always loved. Brunhilde is also pleased to see her horse Grane. When Siegfried besets her, she realizes with horror that without armor, sword and helmet she is no longer divine and thus defenseless. Never before has a man dared to approach her. Now she is a mortal woman and asks Siegfried to keep her virginity. In the arms of Siegfried she is overwhelmed by the human passion of love. Siegfried urges her to unite and misses the last opportunity to become knowing. The Twilight of Gods. New roles. Waltraute, Valkyrian sister of Brunhilde. Gunther, king of the Gibichung. Gudrune, sister of Gunther. Hagen, Gibichung and son of Alberic. Norns, women of fate. On the Valkyrie Rock, 3 Norns prophesy that the reign of the gods will end and their kingdom will go up in flames. It's dawning. Brunhilde and Siegfried step out of the cave where they spent their night of love. Brunhilde says goodbye to Siegfried, who wants to set off for new deeds. Brunhilde wants to wait for his return. and they exchange love tokens. Brunhilde gives him her horse Grane, and Siegfried gives her the ring, whose meaning he does not know. The two swear eternal fidelity to each other, and Siegfried boards a raft that will carry him up the Rhine. On the banks of the Rhine, in the castle of Gibikum, Gunther, the king of the Gibikum, is in front of his castle. With him are his sister Gudrune and their half-brother Hagen, the son of Alberic. Hagen has inherited from his father the hatred for the gods and greed for the ring. To get the ring, he cunningly advises a king to marry Brunhilde to improve the tarnished reputation of his reign. But to do this, he needs Siegfried, who is the only one strong enough to break through the fire to her sleeping quarters. To win him over, Gudrune shall take Siegfried as her husband. When Gudrune doubts whether she can win Siegfried, Hagen reminds her of the potion of oblivion. As soon as she meets him, she is to hand him the potion and he will forget Brunhilde. As Siegfried passes the castle with his raft, Hagen calls to him and invites him to join them. When Siegfried enters the castle, Gunther welcomes him. Proudly Siegfried shows Gunther his magic helmet and his sword. He tells that he was able to wrest the ring from the dragon, and that Brunhilde now owns it. Gudrune enters the hall with a drinking horn. Siegfried drinks the potion of oblivion. The effect sets in, and Siegfried wants to marry Gudrune. Siegfried asks Gunther if he has a wife. He answers that no woman has suited him yet. But there is a woman living on a rock, protected by high fire, whom he desires. The way to her is impossible, the fire would kill him immediately. Siegfried offers to help him. With the magic helmet he could take the shape of Gunther and win Brunhilde for him. Gunther accepts joyfully and the two drink euphorically blood brotherhood. Hagen is satisfied. His plan to win back the ring for his father Alberic seems to succeed. On the Valkyrie's Rock, Brunhilde sits lonely on the Valkyrie's Rock and looks at Siegfried's ring in tender remembrance. Suddenly she hears thunder. Gladly she greets Valtraute, her Valkyrie's sister. Brunhilde is happy to see her despite Wotan's spell. In a dark voice, Valtraute tells of the gloomy atmosphere in Valhalla. Wotan has returned from his long hike bitterly. His spear was in ruins. He reported that the end of the gods is near, and the only salvation will be if the ring is returned to the Rhine maidens. But Brunhilde is not prepared to give up Siegfried's token of love, even if this would seal the fate of the gods. Desperately, Valtraute begs her to return the ring. But her mind is made up and she sends her sister away. Suddenly the sky turns red and she thinks to hear Siegfried's horn call. Brunhilde hurries towards him. She recedes in horror when she sees a stranger. In the name of the Gibikum, Siegfried in Gunther's shape demands the right to take her as his wife. Brunhilde desperately tries to fend him off, but he brutally tears the ring from her finger and forces the pale Brunhilde into the cave to consummate the marriage. On the banks of the Rhine, in the castle of the Gibikum. In the moonlight Hagen sleeps in front of the hall of Gibikum. Alberic appears before the eyes of the sleeping Hagen. He admonishes him to win back the ring. Hagen swears to it and Alberic leaves him. The next morning, Siegfried appears and announces that he appeared at Brunhilde's in Gunther's shape and could change with Gunther unnoticed in the fog of dawn. He assures Gudrune that he had not touched Brunhilde and announces the imminent arrival of Gunther and Brunhilde. Cheering, Gudrune agrees to the imminent wedding. Hagen calls the people of Gibikum together to offer the king and his bride a worthy reception and to celebrate the upcoming double wedding. Gunther is received magnificently by the people. Brunhilde follows him. She is pale with humiliation and she has her eyes lowered. Gunther proudly presents his bride, the daughter of the gods. Siegfried appears with the ring on his finger and Gudrune on his arm. Stunned, Brunhilde sees Siegfried. When she speaks to him in a trembling voice, she realizes that Siegfried no longer knows her. When she notices the ring on Siegfried's hand, which Gunther allegedly snatched from her, she realizes with a shudder the wrong aim and accuses Siegfried of robbery. Siegfried claims to have snatched it from the dragon. Spurred on by Hagen, Brunhilde now accuses Siegfried of treachery. She tells of having consummated the marriage with Siegfried and thus declares Gunther to be the betrayed husband. To protect him, Siegfried claims that he never touched her. Brunhilde repeats that she has consummated the marriage with Siegfried. All eyes now are on Siegfried. In order to protect his blood brother, he swears his innocence on the point of Hagen's spear and thus commits the perjury of never having touched her. The turmoil is great when Brunhilde, for her part, swears an oath to have spoken the truth. Siegfried can reassure Gunther and the guests with difficulty. He calls upon them to accompany him to the feast. Brunhilde, Hagen and the deeply ashamed Gunther stay behind. Brunhilde feels powerless at the mercy of the forces. Hagen offers to avenge her and wants to know how he can defeat Siegfried. Brunhilde tells him that Siegfried is invincible in battle, and that he is only vulnerable at one point on his back. Hagen turns to Gunther, who is paralyzed in deep shame, and suggests that he kill Siegfried. Gunther hesitates to let the blood of his blood brother flow. When Brunhilde mocks him and Hagen offers him the ring, Gunther agrees, and they decide to disguise Siegfried's death as a hunting accident. In a wooded valley, on the passing Rhine, the Rhine maidens swim in the river and mourn the loss of the gold. They eagerly await a hero to bring the gold back to them. When Siegfried appears on the bank, he complains that he has not yet been able to hunt down any prey. The mermaids see the ring on his hand and offer to help him hunt, and in return they demand the ring. Siegfried refuses at first, but agrees when the mermaids tease him as a miser. They warn him of the power and curse of the ring. Only if he handed over the ring to them could his evil fate be averted. Now Siegfried realizes the value of the ring, and he is seized by the greed for power. He thinks he is invincible and puts the ring back on his finger. The maidens prophesy that he will be killed today, but Siegfried does not want to be intimidated by the mermaids and leaves the place. The mermaids make their way to Brunhilde. Siegfried finds back to the hunting party. They take a break. Hagen gives Siegfried wine. The latter steps to Gunther with the cup and tries to cheer him up. Hagen adds herbs to the wine that bring the past back to life in Siegfried. He pours more wine and asks Siegfried to tell about himself. Siegfried tells his story. With even more wine, Hagen loosens his tongue. Now Siegfried remembers Brunhilde and tells ecstatically how he took her as his wife. With this he has admitted the breach of faith. Hagen points to Wotan's two black ravens that have appeared. Siegfried turns around and looks at them, whereupon Hagen reaches for the spear. Gunther, who has now seen through Hagen's game, tries in vain to stop him. And Hagen stabs Siegfried from behind with a spear. The dead Siegfried is carried to the halls of Gibiking with a solemn escort. In the castle, Gudrun awaits the arrival of Siegfried. Snide, Hagen shows her her dead husband. Gunther accuses Hagen of murder, whereupon Hagen demands the ring as a reward. When Gunther refuses this request, Hagen stabs him with his spear. He wants to snatch the ring from Siegfried's dead body, but to everyone's horror Siegfried's hand raises threateningly. Brunhilde takes the ring. She has learned everything from the Rhine maidens and instructs the Gibiking to build a pyre. In deep sadness, she sinks into the sight of the dead Siegfried. She goes to the river, takes the ring off her hand and gives it back to the Rhine maidens. The ravens of Wotan appear. Brunhilde sends them to Valhalla to announce the Twilight of Gods. Back in the castle, Brunhilde lights the logs under the laid out Siegfried, and rides with her horse Grani into the fire, to unite with Siegfried in death. The fire engulfs the castle, and the Rhine overflows its banks. Hagen jumps into the river to snatch the ring from the Rhine daughters, but the mermaids pull him down. Rejoicing, Flosshilde holds up the ring. In the distance a glow breaks out in the heaven, the burning Valhalla, which has been lit by Loge. With the apocalypse, the end of the world of gods has come.